It's no fault of Elvis. You know, he loved the song. Dolly Parton, America's sweetheart and country music's beloved icon, has spent decades charming the world with her voice and heart. But what if we told you that behind that dazzling smile lies a trail of tension, betrayal, and legendary feuds that never made the headlines? They smiled on camera and they praised her in public. But behind the scenes, there were slammed doors, bitter words, and broken friendships. One singer said they'd never work with her again. Another tried to steal her biggest hit. And although she's tried to keep it a secret, we finally know the 5 singers Dolly couldn't stand working with. But what really happened behind closed doors? And why are some of those old wounds still wide open today? When you find out the truth, you'll never see Dolly Parton the same way again. Dolly Parton's journey to fame. You might know her for the big hair, the bedazzled outfits, and that voice that could make angels cry. But behind the scenes, Dolly Parton has a story that's more jaw-dropping than you think. Her journey from dirt-poor beginnings to music royalty is one for the books, and many people don't know that it's packed with a lot of drama. While she's known as the Queen of Kindness, there are a few names in the industry that she's had some intense friction with. But to understand who Dolly clashed with, you first have to understand her and why she's not one to get involved in drama. Dolly Rebecca Parton was born on January 19, 1946, in a tiny one-room cabin in Locust Ridge, Tennessee. She was raised in a loving but struggling family with 12 kids crammed into a simple mountain home. Her father, Lee Parton, was a hard-working farmer and construction man who couldn't read or write. But Dolly says he was the smartest man she ever knew. Her mother, Lee, had 12 children before she turned 35. And she definitely passed on her deep love for storytelling, music, and God to Dolly. But music wasn't a hobby for Dolly. It was survival. The Partons didn't have money for entertainment, so the kids learned to sing in church and harmonize on the porch. Dolly's family noticed her voice early on, and by the time she was 10, she was performing on local radio and TV shows in nearby Knoxville. And it wasn't long before she began performing at the Grand Ole Opry. The day after she graduated high school in 1964, she packed a bag and took off for Nashville with no money or connections, just raw talent and dreams bigger than the Smoky Mountains she left behind. And she started off by writing songs for others. But she didn't just want to be a songwriter. She wanted the spotlight, and she got it. Her first country hit came in 1967 with Dumb Blonde, a clever little song that basically told the world she wasn't just a pretty face, but a smart one. But how did she go from a Nashville newbie to a global icon? Well, it all began when she joined the Porter Wagoner Show in 1967, and everything changed. Millions saw her on TV every week. Her duets with Porter were instant hits. People loved their chemistry, their harmonies, and Dolly's magnetic personality. And by the early 70s, she launched her solo career, and no one could stop her. Jolene came in 1973 and became an anthem. Then came I Will Always Love You, which was a global hit. And in case you're wondering, yes, Whitney Houston's version came much later and turned it into one of the biggest songs of all time. But Dolly still owns the rights. She made millions from that one song, and she never brags about it. By the 1980s, Dolly was everywhere in movies, music, merch, you name it. She starred in 9 to 5 alongside Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin and proved she wasn't just a singer, she could act too. Then came Dollywood, her very own theme park, which opened in 1986 in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. While other stars were buying yachts, Dolly built a family amusement park in her hometown to boost the local economy. But don't let the kindness fool you, because Dolly's one of the smartest business women in showbiz. She's written over thousands of songs, earned multiple Grammys and Lifetime Achievement Awards, and has been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is not bad for a girl who had no running water growing up. But that's not all. She's also given away millions of books through her Imagination Library, a project that makes sure kids have access to books no matter where they live. Over the years, Dolly has built this image of being sweet, humble, and above the drama. But even a Southern angel has her limits. And over the decades, a few names have popped up again and again. People she clashed with, people who underestimated her, people who thought they could control her or take credit for her shine. And of course, Dolly remembers. She may smile through it, But behind the scenes, there have been feuds, tension, and hurt feelings she's never forgotten. And one of the earliest and perhaps most complicated was with a man who helped launch her career, then tried to own it. And you won't believe how this professional partnership turned into one of the messiest splits in country music. Dolly Parton versus Porter Wagoner. Before Dolly was a global icon, Porter Wagoner was already a huge name in country music. He made a name for himself with a charm and a voice that could cut through any heart. He wasn't just a singer. He was a full-on showman. And by the 1960s, he had his own TV show called The Porter Wagoner Show, one of the biggest syndicated country music shows in America. His stage presence was flashy, but behind the scenes, he was sharp, business-minded, and deeply traditional. He knew what sold, and he saw something special in Dolly Parton. When Dolly Parton joined Porter's show, replacing his previous female vocalist, Norma Jean, for fans who adored Norma, the swap wasn't welcome at first. People booed Dolly on stage. Some even wrote her angry letters. But Porter insisted on keeping her. And Dolly, she stayed gracious, calm, and determined because she had a point to prove. And it didn't. I preserved the text as provided and only removed the timestamps and chapter headings. 7 minutes, 24 seconds take long for the two to become a hit duo. Their harmonies were electric, and their chemistry was pure gold. Together, they scored over a dozen top 10 hits, songs, and on camera, they looked like the perfect team. But behind the smiles, tension was brewing. Here's the thing. Porter Wagoner didn't just want to sing with Dolly. He reportedly wanted to control her career. He managed her appearances, decided what songs they'd record, and had the final say on most business decisions. But Dolly wasn't just a singer with a pretty face. She was a songwriter, a thinker, and a woman with her own vision. She had ambition that stretched far beyond duet records and guest spots on TV. She played along for years. But the more famous she became, the more she wanted to stand on her own. Soon she was getting frustrated, and she began writing songs that didn't fit the Porter and Dolly mold. She wanted creative freedom and, more importantly, control over her own voice. She later confessed that Porter had a hard time thinking of her as his equal. In the beginning, he had given her a platform. But years later, that same platform had become a cage. Still, she didn't leave right away. She knew she owed him a lot. But by 1973, the tension was unbearable. And in 1974, she left the Porter Wagoner Show. To the public, it looked amicable. But behind closed doors, that was just the beginning. 5 years after she walked away, Porter came back swinging with lawyers. In 1979, he sued Dolly for $3 million, claiming that she'd broken their contract. He said she owed him for management fees, show expenses, and a cut of her income since leaving the show. Dolly was stunned. She had always seen Porter as a mentor, even if they didn't part on great terms. This lawsuit felt like betrayal, and for a while it got ugly. There were public statements, press coverage, and industry whispers. But Dolly didn't drag him through the mud. Instead, she quietly settled the case out of court. She later spoke about how she didn't want to fight, but just wanted to be free instead. The whole situation took a toll on Dolly emotionally. Porter had meant something to her, and he had been there at the beginning. They'd made history together, and yet he couldn't let her go without a fight. She once said in an interview, "When I was trying to leave the show, I had told Porter I'd stay 5 years. It had been 5, and it was 6, and it was 7. He was just having a really hard time because it was going to mess up his show. We were very bound and tied together in so many emotional ways, and he just would not hear it." That statement said it all. Their feud wasn't just about money. It was much deeper than that. And this revealed an ugly part of Porter that Dolly had never seen before. And this reportedly hurt her so much. But the good part is that time, as always, changes things. By the late 1980s, after years of being on bad terms, Porter and Dolly had started talking again. In 2002, Dolly did something that surprised a lot of people. She inducted Porter Wagoner into the Country Music Hall of Fame. On stage, she told the audience how much he meant to her, even through their tough times. And when Porter was hospitalized in 2007 with lung cancer, Dolly reportedly visited him. Just weeks later, Porter passed away. Dolly was devastated. She held a tribute concert at Dollywood. Not for the public, not for the headlines, but for the man who helped launch her dreams, even if he tried to hold them back. This experience with Porter is definitely one of the most complex chapters in Dolly's career, and one that shaped her in ways few people realize. But this next person on Dolly's list said something that shocked not just Dolly, but the entire world. Dolly Parton versus Linda Ronstadt. They were the dream team. Three powerhouse women in country music. Dolly Parton, Linda Ronstadt, and Emmylou Harris, who came together to collaborate on the legendary album Trio. Their voices blended perfectly, producing hits that still give us chills. But behind the scenes, it wasn't all sunshine and sing-alongs, especially between Dolly and Linda. And what started as a musical sisterhood nearly unraveled into a full-blown feud back in the mid-1970s. Dolly, Linda, and Emmylou were already stars in their own right. They admired each other's work and dreamed of collaborating. But with conflicting schedules and record label politics, their plans kept getting delayed. It wasn't until 1987 that their first album, titled Trio, finally dropped. The album was a smash. It went platinum, topped the country charts, and even snagged a Grammy. But while the music was harmonious, the recording sessions were anything but that. Dolly, known for her quick work ethic, preferred to nail songs in 1 or 2 takes. Linda, on the other hand, was a perfectionist, often spending hours to get a single vocal just right. Emmylou was the mediator trying to keep the peace. Dolly once revealed that working with Linda was like dealing with a diva who loves to live in the studio and work so slowly. She even spoke about wanting to yell at Linda countless times. It got so bad that it became clear to everyone that their working styles clashed and tensions were simmering beneath the surface. Despite the challenges, the trio attempted a second album in 1994. They recorded Trio 2, but label disputes and scheduling conflicts delayed its release. Thankfully, the album eventually saw the light of day in 1999, but it was too late as the damage to their relationship was done. While Dolly and Linda's relationship may have started with mutual admiration and some friendly competition, it certainly didn't end on the best of terms. In fact, Linda was quite vocal about her frustrations with Dolly's unreliability when it came to the project. Linda once slammed Dolly in an interview, stating that she was hard to rely on during the recording sessions. She claimed that Dolly would often cancel plans or show up late, and this frustrated her a lot. In fact, she once said that Dolly was never on time and that she was always a little flaky. But it wasn't just about being tardy. Linda made it clear that she felt Dolly didn't fully respect the process or commitment needed to complete the project. Linda felt like Dolly was more concerned with her solo career than the group effort, and it left her bitter.